In August 1975, a shattering moment threatened the future of both Robert and Led Zeppelin. He and his family were vacationing in Greece when Maureen Plant lost control of their car. Maureen fractured her skull, and Plant sustained numerous injuries, most significantly, a badly smashed ankle that kept him off stage for nearly 2 years. Robert recovered physically, but gained a life-altering awareness of the fragility of human life. Yet even as he eased warily back into performing, tragedy waited around the corner. In 1977, on the band's first tour to America since his accident, Robert received a phone call from Maureen. 5-year-old Carrick had succumbed to a violent respiratory infection.
Dear Robert experienced the thing that we all fear the most, you know. His son died while we were away.
Robert was immobilized. His old mate John Bonham showed up to hold Plant and grieve with him. Robert questioned his entire existence and purpose in life. Whether Led Zeppelin continued or not seemed of little consequence.
I think that his passion for music took a huge dent, and eventually he's rekindled it, you know, but I think that it probably changed his priorities in life quite a lot.
In early 1979, Plant agreed to return to the stage. Led Zeppelin delivered a historic series of concerts in England that changed their status in the British press once and for all. Robert and Maureen, meanwhile, had gratefully welcomed the birth of a second son, Logan. Though Robert would never recover from the loss of Carrick, a tolerable existence had begun to seem possible. Peter Grant planned a massive tour of the U.S. for the fall of 1980, but the Zeppelin was about to lose altitude unexpectedly. John Baldwin was born on January 3, 1946, in Sidcup, England. His father, Joe, was a successful pianist and arranger. His mother also worked in the music business, so the family often toured and performed together. John received an extensive musical education at a prestigious boarding school. By age 14, he was choirmaster and organist at his local church. His family encouraged him to pursue music. John's father urged him to take up the saxophone, but John convinced him that he could earn a living playing the bass.
He's such a musical talent, such a multi-instrumental talent. It enabled that band to do what they did live.
Baldwin changed his name to John Paul Jones at the suggestion of his friend, the manager of the Rolling Stones, who had seen the more intriguing name on a French movie poster. Within the band, he was known as Jonesy. By 16, Jones was playing bass for a popular band. He soon moved on to a prolific career as a session musician in the same league with Jimmy Page. He played on or arranged innumerable recordings for artists like Donovan, Shirley Bassey, the Rolling Stones, Rod Stewart, and Cat Stevens. In fact, he and Page met at a session for Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man. But for Jones as well as Page, life in the studio, while profitable, was a dead end. When Jones' wife, Mo, suggested that he call and find out what Jimmy Page was up to, she was hoping to help him find a way out of a tedious routine. Jones admired Jimmy. He dutifully made the phone call. Life was never dull again. Many of Zeppelin's best-known compositions originated with Jones. On others, he could be relied on to bring in the funk or weave a gossamer thread.
No one really understands the whole contribution that John Paul Jones made. I mean, if you really listen to Stairway to Heaven and listen to the keyboards or Rain Song, you know, that's some big stuff John Paul Jones is doing.
While Jones was responsible for his share of mischief on the road, he became known, if only in comparison, as the quiet one.
He always looks like he's the quiet one, and I've certainly heard him being very, very loud.
As time went on, Jones often stayed at a separate hotel on tour. He visited friends and explored each new city.
I think they all had fun together, and I think when it was downtime, they would have their own separate things to do.
Always a pro, he never failed to show up on time and ready to play. Between commitments, Jones maintained a quiet country life in Devon with his wife and 3 daughters. Like Plant, he recharged and enjoyed his family. One of Jones' proudest claims was that the rhythm section he created with drummer John Bonham made the girls in the Zeppelin's audience get up and dance. How could they resist?
John Bonham. John Bonham. Speaking of the hammer of the gods, we come to John Bonham.
John Henry Bonham was born to play the drums.
John Bonham, Bonzo, was one of the most aggressive, hard-hitting, lead-footed drummers that ever existed.
Born on May 31st, 1948, in Redditch, Worcestershire, he was the son of a carpenter. At 5, his father presented him with his first set of drums, his mother's pots and pans, and a tin of bath salts strung together. By age 10, he received an actual snare drum. At age 17, while working construction with his father and playing drums on the side, he married his high school sweetheart. Money was scarce. He promised Pat that he would give up drumming and do something profitable. Until he met Robert Plant. Bonham played in both of Plant's bands, but had recently snagged a decently paying gig when Jimmy Page tried to recruit him for his new band. Even though his friend Robert had already signed on, Bonzo hesitated. But Robert and Jimmy didn't let up. Bonzo became the engine that drove Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin higher, tighter, and harder than any other rock band.
During the live performance, Jimmy would spend most of the time right in front of the kick drum, in his back like this. And that was the groove.
He could play with his hands. He could play with 4 drumsticks in each hand. He could play all night. What Bonzo couldn't do was downshift. A loving, gentle family man at home, Bonham became a wild man on the road. His alcohol and drug intake was as huge as his drumming. After a show in Belfast, Ireland, a drunken Bonzo and a friend threatened the staff in a restaurant with a knife for being closed when they were hungry. The band's road manager, Richard Cole, arrived in time to knock him out. This was not unusual behavior for Bonzo or for Richard Cole. On Bonzo's 25th birthday, held in a Los Angeles hotel, George Harrison dumped the top tier of Bonham's birthday cake on his head. Bonzo picked up Harrison and Patty Boyd and deposited them in the pool. Harrison said it was the best party he'd been to in ages.
Just fun, you know. Boys being boys.
But the partying couldn't last forever. On September 25th, 1980, the band met at Jimmy Page's mansion to rehearse for their first American tour after Carrick's death. Bonzo loosened up with a few drinks and played splendidly. After passing out on a sofa, he was helped to a bedroom, where during the night he regurgitated in his sleep and asphyxiated. He was discovered next morning by Benji Lefavre.
I said to Jimmy and Robert, don't go up there, you don't need to see this, but that's just fact, you know. He died. It was tragic. It hit us all really hard, you know, it's like losing a sibling.
Bonzo was the motor. There was no going forward without him. On December 4th, 1980, Led Zeppelin decided unanimously to disband. The band issued a statement that said, "The loss of our dear friend and the deep sense of harmony felt by ourselves and our manager have led us to decide that we could not continue as we were."